So our next character through this story of mercy is Abraham. Funny story, quick story about Abraham. His name initially is actually Abram, and God eventually changes his name. But there's this old Jewish tradition story where Abraham's father was a very kind of pagan, sinful man, and he had this shop full of idol statues. Okay, and people would come and buy the statues from him. And Abraham knew, not to be idol worshiping, right, as God commanded. So he says, Father, this is kind of silly. You have all these idols. And so his father leaves the store for a while, and he comes back, and all of the idol statues are busted up and broken, and they're laying on the ground, except for one. And Abram had laid like a bat at the foot of the statue. And so his father comes in, he's like, what is going on here? The whole shop is ruined. Where were you? What happened? And he said, well, it wasn't me, it was that statue there. And he's like, what are you talking about? It's just a statue. It's just an idol statue. It can't do anything. And he says, of course. So why are you worshiping them? It was a great point. So it's a funny story about Abram. So God does change his name to Abraham, which means father of the faith. And God promises Abraham three things. He promises him land, which will come later with Moses. He promises him a dynasty of descendants, which comes later with David. And he promises him a universal blessing, which comes later with Jesus. So, God says, you're going to have a son. These three angels come to Abraham and they say, you're going to have a son. And they're very old. And so Sarah just doesn't believe it. And she, as a matter of fact, she kind of laughs out loud. She's like laughing hysterically because she's so old. She says, this is not possible. We cannot have a child. And so sure enough, the three angels say, you will have a son named Isaac. Isaac means laughter. So one of our sons, our younger son actually, we have our little Isaac. That's Isaac. He's a little booger. There's this famous story where Abraham takes his son up a mountain, and his son Isaac has to carry the wood himself up a mountain to be sacrificed. And Abraham's going to sacrifice his only son, and there's the picture. The angel stops him, but this is exactly what happens when Jesus, God's only son, takes wood up a mountain to be sacrificed. You see, God is saying something greater is coming. Abraham and Isaac is pointing us to Jesus. It's been in God's plan the whole time, hiding there in plain sight. And so Abraham walks by faith. And he says, your descendants will count the stars. As numerous as the stars in the sky will be your descendants. And you know what the next line in the Bible is? It says, and then the sun sets. So when God makes that promise, the stars in the sky, there are no stars in the sky. It's daytime. So Abraham trusts completely in God, complete faith in God. It's like this movie, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Anyone seen that one? It's like the last good Indiana Jones movie. It's the third one. I love this movie. And he gets to this part where there's this chasm he's got to walk over, but there's no bridge. And he has no choice because if he doesn't do this, his father's going to die. His father's dying, like right now. And so he comes to this chasm and there's nothing. And so he just kind of closes his eyes, puts his hands over his heart, sticks his foot out, and just does this. And he catches himself on something. And once he starts walking a bit, he can see that the monks of old have painted the bridge, so you couldn't see it. It was like an optical illusion. But this is exactly what confession can feel like, especially if you haven't been in a long time. And that was me at one point. You haven't been in a long time. This is what it can feel like. And then what happens is you go, and you're like, oh, that was it? That was it. Indiana Jones. I love it. So he takes a leap of faith. He has trust in God.